Here's what you missed on the Sully Baseball Daily Podcast.
Something happened last night to me personally that made me say that Major League Baseball's priorities are all screwed up in terms of spreading their game out to a new audience. I was a Little League coach last year. My kids played Little League. And in our Little League, there were big league uniforms that they wore. The team that I coached and my kids played on were the Mets. And there were the Marlins, the Pirates, the Giants, the Dodgers, the Angels, the Diamondbacks, and the A's. And when the kids showed up in their uniforms, they had great looking. They were basically T-shirts that had the logos on and the hats, but they looked great. They looked like big leaguers. It was fabulous. And we had this big day where all the kids were in their uniforms, and all these kids, they looked like big leaguers. They really did. And they walked around with great pride, even on days where they weren't playing in their uniform. My kids loved wearing their Mets shirt and their Mets hat. They looked like players. And so this year, we have our first Little League meeting. We sat down and we said, what team do you want? What's our team name going to be? Now, my kids, if you listened to the podcast a few days ago, were obsessed with animals, and they were saying Tigers, Blue Jays, and the coach said, no, it can't be a Major League team. And I said, why not? He said, well, because Major League Baseball has increased the licensing rates for Little League, and it was out of our price range, and so we're now creating a new team name. So our kids are now going to be playing for the Red Robins. That's the team. Red Robins. Who the hell are the Red Robins? They're not the Mets or the Pirates or the Giants or the Angels or the Dodgers or the A's or whichever team were there last year. And I'm thinking to myself, Major League Baseball's raising the prices on Little League? Really? Baseball, Bud Selig, you drooling moron. Listen to me and listen to me well. If you're in charge of this baseball thing and you want it spread to a young audience, then this is what you don't do. You don't price out the kids. You don't make it harder for the kids to walk around wearing a Major League uniform and feeling like a cool baseball player. My kids loved walking around like they were a Met, and when they watched a baseball game and they saw the Mets were playing, they kind of perked up and said, hey, that looks like my hat. That looks like my uniform. My cousin's son, who's a big baseball fan, is a Mets fan. And not because he's growing up in New York, he's growing up near San Francisco. So you'd think he'd be a huge Giant fan, but he's a Mets fan. Do you know why? Because when he played Little League, his team was the Mets. And he looked so good in his Met uniform that became the team he followed. In this day and age where you can watch any game from any tablet, from your iPhone, from your computer, from the MLB package on television, you could follow any team. I could follow and be a rabid Red Sox fan while sitting here in Pasadena, California, overlooking the historic Rose Bowl. Think about the connections that you can make with kids walking around feeling like a major leaguer, finding that connection with a major league team, and you're going to price them out? You're going to make that too expensive to do? But now you're saying, you know what? Let's make it harder for kids to get involved. When you are 8 or 9 years old, that's when you really make your first emotional attachment to a baseball team. You ask any baseball fan when they started following baseball, and most of them are going to state when they're around second or third grade. And they can probably remember a bunch of the players then. They probably have some of their earliest memories then. That's right around the time you start Little League. Now, I hate to be talking like I'm a drug dealer here, but you know what? You get them hooked early. And you get like, oh, look at me, look at how cool I am. Hey, I look like the guy on the TV or the tablet or the iPhone or on MLB.com or whichever device that you use to watch baseball, which you can do anywhere now. The idea of local team and territorial team is, do you know what? That's a little bit dated. So you got to have your little leaguers, especially, in our town, we have a decent-sized little league here. And we had a huge celebration last year with all these kids in the different uniforms. It was just wonderful to see. And you're going to shut that down over some bucks? You're going to outprice this? Why? You really think that that's a smart thing to do? Well, we're going to make $2 more extra if we do this. Yes. Or you can have a generation of kids wanting to be a baseball player. Seriously, when you're a kid, I know so many kids, including myself, who had a Superman cape, who had a Batman cape, who had a Spider-Man mask, who had a Luke Skywalker lightsaber, that we wanted to be all those people, put on an Indiana Jones hat. And now I bet there's a lot of kids who want to be, I don't know, freaking Harry Potter or Frodo Baggins or whatever it is from Lord of the Rings. You know what? You really can't grow up to be a hobbit or grow down to be a hobbit. You can't grow up to be Batman or Superman or Spider-Man. But you can grow up to become a baseball player. And that fantasy is something that goes long after you put away your cowboy hat and your Superman cape. And you're going to try to take that away? How short-sighted can you possibly be? Because these uniforms look great. When I was in Little League, the uniforms sucked. I was on the Phillies. My Phillies uniform didn't look anything like the real Phillies uniform. It was a dark blue thing with block letters that said Phillies across it. I didn't look like Mike Schmidt. I didn't look like Steve Carlton. I didn't even look like Von Hayes. I just looked like a schmuck with Phillies across his chest. But my kids look like a Met. And you're going to take that away. You know, when you're sitting around going like, oh, how can we expand our likability? How can we expand our fan base? What you do is you make sure that the new kids coming up are fans. And one way you do it is you make them feel like heroes. You make them feel like superstars. And you make sure that when they go out to play, they can say, hey, I'm a member of the Dodgers or the Blue Jays or the Mets or the Pirates, and not the freaking Red Robins.
There's a new podcast every day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Unless there's a leap year, then we're going to do another one. Catch us on iTunes, SoundCloud, or follow us on Twitter at Sully Baseball. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.